we're going to take as much time to open up about this. I don't have other people here that would be in this group. I'm just going to speak and share my heart about the pedo ring and the abusive foster mother. That she was tracked down in Australia, and she's working for an organization called Life Without Barriers. And I'm so angry and outraged by what the foster mother had put my 3-year-old sister through. Every night she would yank my sister around in her arm in her pajamas. And this went on every night. I sat at the dinner table because I did. Obviously, we weren't allowed to get up until after we were finished with our dinner. And what she would do is she would make my sister, 3-year-old sister, eat her peas. And if she wouldn't eat her peas, she would make her sit there all night and put her on a timer. It was psychological, mental abuse. This went on every night. And I think about all the times I didn't get to go to bed. And I know so many people that have been through different things. This was just after we escaped the pedo ring. And I'm so angry at the county. And I'm angry at the foster care system. They gave her a house to live in. Paid for. County paid for. And we haven't received any justice whatsoever. We were removed from that foster home finally because I had finally been able to tell the caseworker. And I am so angry. It's so fresh in my mind now because she's in Australia. And she apparently had gone to jail. She had gone to jail in Chicago. We live here in like the northern part of Pittsburgh in Butler County foster care system where a lot of parents who lose custody of their children, we were in a better situation with my mom than to be placed into the custody of a foster mother who had no regard for us at all. She would always play favorites with one kid, and with my sister it was separate. There was like a separate set of rules with my sister, and her children didn't get touched. I never seen her hit her kids ever or yank her kids around ever. She had this thing about hurting my sister, and I witnessed it. By the time I told the caseworker at the foster care department in Zillionople at LYFS, it had been going on enough that it got so bad that without too much fluff, it took us a month to get out of that home. And every night they would dirty looks at me for ratting them out, you know. Do I think that Pennsylvania hasn't apologized to the foster children and were pincushions? I was forced down on a gurney to take a shot and psychotropic medication and everything. My story is so important because there are definitely people out there that are forced in psych wards and hospitals and foster care. And the system sucks. They put people on antipsychotic medication. They drug them up. They do this to foster children. I'm one of them. And I just reached out to a Navy SEAL, and I'm trying to reach out to President Trump about it. I thank him for acknowledging, because he was the one that told the Navy SEAL about what happened to the foster children. And I'm going to tell you, I reach out to President Trump, and I'm trying to get to President Trump so that I can personally tell him my personal story, how tragic it was. February 1985, my mom and I got into a spat. And I remember that night, it was really cold in our house because our heat was shut off. My dad had been in jail for a minor offense. And he was in what they call a rehabilitation program where he was not in jail, but he was, just getting back on his feet. And my dad had a visit with us that coming Christmas, that Christmas. So it didn't go very well. It was just a very rocky time. My parents were both separated at the time. My dad had been on a bender when he got in trouble and went to jail. And I was being stalked at school because he was in jail. They said that I was stealing and things like that. This girl accused me of stealing her diamond ring. So eventually, once the police got involved, I was eventually going to be removed from the home, and I was going to be placed into foster care. Because basically, they were trying to break up our family, and my dad told me the same thing. Everyone who took advantage of us during this time, though. Because when I came home, we were already being removed from the home. My brothers were living at a cousin's house. My other brother and I were living at a neighbor's house, and my sisters were being removed from what I'm going to tell you about the pedo ring. My mom had left my sisters with a daycare center operator. She had nowhere to drop the kids off, or something was wrong. But the pedo was running the daycare center. He had been charged with 11 counts of raping boys. And my sisters were there for 2 straight weeks, and I was frantic. And while I was at junior high school at Keystone Oaks School District and J&F Middle School, they would sit there and stalk me every day. Kids stalked me every day while I was trying to find out what was going to happen with my sisters, because I didn't know where they were. I didn't know they were at this daycare center. And somebody at the locker, who was a friend of my brother's, told me that he had seen my sisters at this such and such address, and it's called Glenmore Academy. And then immediately I just skipped school, because I was skipping school anyway because of the stalking. See, I really realized that I would have sued Keystone Oaks School District for the stalking and harassment that I went through. And anytime somebody harasses somebody on Facebook from high school or any of that leads to the possible suicide attempt or anything like that, it's a very serious matter, because it goes on in junior high and high school. That's why my story still resonates with people, because I know that there's a lot of people who are going through similar things, or maybe have gone through it, or been forced in a psych ward. And that's not what was going on. But the only way to get attention, because at that time, I didn't know how to verbalize what I was going through. I just know I was witnessing abuse. So, as I was telling you before, a man came up to me, a young man, not a man, a young man, who was friends with my brother. And he told me about the address that he had saw my sisters at, and I immediately got to that place. I skipped school that rest of the afternoon, and I made my way down there. And luckily, my uncle, who owned a beer distributor, was nearby. He was only like a block away. So I walked and I approached the steps, and I walked up the steps and I knocked on the door, and I did not know what I was going to be dealing with. I just wanted to see my sisters, and my sisters were there, and I heard them. You know, I knew they were there. So he wouldn't let me see my sisters. So I ran down to my uncle's beer distributor. He called the police. The Dormont police in this area is south of Pittsburgh. It's not that far outside of the city. But Dormont's a borough, and that's the place we grew up. And there was a lot of, like I said, stalking, mistreatment, harassment, and it still goes on. It didn't stop going on even after. I mean, I left high school a long time ago, and I still see people harassing people from high school. I saw this one man on Facebook who, I never saw him as a dude that ever harassed anybody, but he started harassing me on Facebook, and he was a friend. I mean, his sister was one of my friends from high school. And it does go on. Social media is full of this kind of stuff, scams, everything. Facebook especially. marriage scams, dating scams, harassment, abuse going on a regular basis. That's why you have to be very careful and avoid any of those people. If at all possible, don't even say two words. If it gets to the point where somebody's, crossed that line, just don't respond back to them. That's the only thing you can do. Or block them, which is better, to block them. So anyway, I wanted to say this, that I had found a lot of this information on social media, and it's taken years to get justice because there was really no justice served. I mean, we were removed from our homes. My mom had no really choice. She didn't really have any option. My uncle put our house up for sale without even telling my mom and dad, and he was also on the title of the house deed, and it was gone. So people just kept ripping us off and taking advantage of my mom, my dad. We were being taken advantage of left and right, and it just happened with my truck. So we have attorneys now. We have a great law firm that we're dealing with, and I appreciate that finally, because we're fighting back. It took a long time to get that fight in me. I had lost the will to fight. I lost the ability to fight back because we were so taken advantage of. So we were in group therapy, and we were court ordered to go to group therapy or counseling at that point in 1985 after this had all broke loose. This was all information that was released. I don't know if there was any jail sentence attached to what happened was, because I don't believe that's what happened at all. In fact, from what I understand, he was picked up on a separate charge. So I didn't think of myself as growing up a victim, because I didn't understand that. But I was hurting. I was in pain, constant pain. And this last time, I had to call on somebody who works on missions and work when it comes to fighting human trafficking. And one of the things about these hospitals and these hospital programs, they're designed to use psychotropic drugs. And I talked to the Navy SEAL about this area here in Butler, PA, about throwing people into hospitals and leaving them there for months at a time. The psychiatric industry, the big pharma industry, all of it is so corrupt. The corruption of the system, the corruption of the hospitals, the corruption of the dentist's office, everything to me has become more corrupted. Because they're willing to wear a mask, and this mask order is, to me, there's nothing constitutionally okay with any of the things that are going on. It's all corruption. Most of these doctors' offices and these dentist offices, they operate their businesses like any other business. Same with Dollar General, all of them. There's corruption everywhere. So whenever they shut down these restaurants and these stores and these places, the only ones that are not willing to reopen are the ones that are not going to go along with the orders. The other orders, they're going along with everything. They're like the little do-gooders that they are. Because they're systematic. And I want to talk about systematic abuse. When I was up at Dollar General, I pay a lot of money for groceries, go to the store, go pick up things, And I go out of my way to be a good paying customer. And I've seen some of the cashiers do some very loopy things. But then they turn around and they try to make it right. So I don't know if it's the corporations. I don't know what it is, but it's systematic abuse. And when these hospitals, and we were talking about this story a few months back about Farview Hospital, about the psychiatric industry, like people disappear. They end up in a psych hospital and disappear. Right here in Butler County of Pennsylvania. You could go into a psych ward. You could go to any psych ward throughout the Western Pennsylvania, because the psych industry is full of corruption. Same with the vaccinations, all this stuff. That's why I call it part of the pedophile ring. Because you shouldn't have to force anybody to drug anybody. You shouldn't have to do any of that. And the nurses and doctors will probably have a justification for that, I'm pretty sure. I don't personally know those doctors and nurses that had used me as a pincushion, but I contacted somebody that would contact President Trump about it. As for what Kim Schmitz did to my sister that night, every night, is that my sister was in her pajamas. And she was a 3-year-old little girl with long, blonde, curly hair. Cutie pie. That lady's in Australia. And she works with an organization, Life Without Barriers. Her name is Kim Schmitz. And she abused my sister, and she abused my family. And my fight and my battle is not the pedophile ring. It's all the abuses that go on. These monsters that go around signing up to be foster parents again after abuse, like that to me is the criminal matter. That they're still doing it. So there's been no justice for my sister, Monica. There's not been justice for us at all. I contacted the Human Services here in Pennsylvania and wanted to know if there's ever going to be justice. Is there going to be justice? Because they were the judges that placed us in these foster homes, and the judges need to answer for what happened. You know, Judge Whittick was the one that placed us in that foster home. So I want to know where accountability is. And when we go to our polls, you want to know about accountability. People give respect when it's earned. So far, none of these people have earned any respect. Using foster children as a pincushion doesn't earn you respect. It might earn you a paycheck. There's doctors and nurses in those emergency rooms that do it every day. They don't have the respect, though. It should anger everybody that these people get rehired, even after being in jail for being an abuser. Repeat offenders. So whenever President Trump was doing this thing called police officer reform, what I want to know is, where is the reform for repeat offenders? Where's the reform there? Where's the reform in the foster care system? Where's the reform in these hospitals where you could take me into a hospital and I could disappear? People are afraid of this. They're afraid of this re-education camp system. They did it in Auschwitz. The Constitution is written to protect the people from tyrannical government. What they're doing in California is tyranny. These governors are tyrannical. There's nothing in your Bill of Rights that says that they are allowed to abuse you. There's nothing that that Governor Gavin Newsom, what he's doing in California, he's a tyrannical tyrant. So is Governor Wolf. They're tyrants. They put the fear. They have fear. They want the people to be afraid. If you don't wear a mask order, what are they going to do? Fine you? Send you to jail? Just another way to collect more money. The system has become so criminal and corrupt. They are corrupt. To fine you for not wanting to wear a mask freely. I spent all my life, we never had to wear a mask. Now they decide they're churches. And that Ruth Bader Ginsberg, she's a criminal, along with that Chief Justice Roberts. They're criminals. They're not going to side with the church. They're not going to side with the morality of America and put a stop to abortion. Everybody should be angry. You pay for this. And including the pedo rings that just land. Every taxpayer would get up in the morning and want to know if their kids are going to be safe. You don't know for sure if a pedo has looked at your child. You know that people would wake up every day if they knew that their children were in any danger of a pedophile. They would be doing something about it. They would want justice served. They want the repeat offenders to stay in jail. And what Gavin Newsom is doing, he's a threat to other Americans in other states. I feel more threatened by Gavin Newsom in Pennsylvania because he's releasing offenders that are probably belong in jail. He's a tyrant. The forefathers never gave permission to these governors to be tyrants. And a tyrannical system that they're running, it is wrong. Those tyrants that force vaccinations, you're a bunch of tyrants. And the world is going to find out who you really are. They're going to find out the real terrors and the real criminals that you are. When you rape a girl in their backside, they're going to find out who you are, and they're going to break your arms. You would know my anger. I will tell you. 10 babies that were being born in Colombia didn't even have their umbilical cords cut. And men were raping the infants coming out of the womb. That's how sick it is. These tyrannical people that hide those pedophiles and